I would like to thank our webinar partner, CXO Cockpit, whose strong commitment to thought leadership helps us make this webinar possible today. Before I delve into the content, I'm going to offer a few quick words about Treasury webinars, cover a few housekeeping items, review our learning objectives as they offer our value proposition for you in investing a valuable hour of your time with us today, and then welcome our featured speakers to the webinar. Quick words about FP&A webinars. FP&A webinars offers webinars designed to empower FP&A success at companies of all sizes across all industries. We only focus on what we do best, which is webinars. Now for the exciting housekeeping items. For anyone interested in CTP or FP&A credit, you'll have to answer all the polling questions and remain on for the duration of the webinar. If you have any questions regarding CTP or FP&A credit, please send me an email to ernie@360thoughtleadership.com. I also put my email address into the chat area as well, so you have that at your disposal. We'd love to hear from you today, so we encourage you to ask questions at any times in the questions area of your GoToWebinar control panel. We'll do our best to get to your questions at the Q&A session at the tail end of the webinar. Fear not, if we don't get to your questions, we'll follow up with you directly. Tremendous opportunity today for everyone online to tap into two world-renowned experts, so I encourage you to take advantage of that opportunity. Finally, we appreciate your consideration in taking a short survey at the end of the webinar today, as we always strive to improve the ROI we offer our event attendees for your valuable time. What's our value proposition for you today to spending that time with us? After the webinar, you'll be able to know why business partnering matters and is more important than ever. You will discover how to empower more informed decision making at your company through effective business partnering and the right technology, and you'll be able to identify specific opportunities to increase the strategic value of the FP&A function at your company. A few quick words about our agenda. Our first featured speaker will discuss business partnering, offer us a great overview and framework. Then we'll pivot to a panel discussion with our two featured speakers and talk about effective business partnering in terms of people, process, and technology. And then we'll pivot to an actual live example of the role that technology can play in impacting effective business partnering. Then we'll close things up with some business partnering success and our Q&A. So now it's my distinct pleasure to welcome our featured speakers to the webinar. Wouter Born, he's the CTO and co-founder of CXO Cockpit as part of the founding of the global management team at CXO Cockpit. He is passionate about growing the CXO Cockpit brand, product, and company in any way possible. His 16 years of experience with EPM software like Hyperion, SAP, Tagetik, and IBM TM1 helps him understand the market and meet customer needs and exceed customer expectation. Our other featured speaker today is Anders Liu-Lindberg. He is the head of Global Finance Program Management Office at AP Moller Maersk and has over 10 years of experience working with finance at Maersk, both in Denmark and abroad. His main goal at Maersk is to create a world-class business function, not least when it comes to business partnering. He's also the co-founder of the Business Partnering Institute and owner of the largest group dedicated to finance business partnering on LinkedIn with more than 5,000 members. He is a co-author of the book, Create Value as a Finance Business Partner, and a longtime finance blogger with more than 20,000 followers on LinkedIn. Before I pass the floor over to Anders, I want to level set the audience a little bit in terms of your company's focus on effective business partnering. So I've gone ahead and launched our first polling question. Our first polling question is asking you to share with us if your company has a training program that focuses on effective business partnering. I appreciate everyone's consideration in answering all of our polling questions here today. Those of you interested in receiving CTP credit or FP&A credit for the webinar today, you'll have to answer all of our polling questions. In order to be mindful of our time, I'm going to only leave the polling question up for another 5 seconds or so, as we have a lot of great content to cover, and I want to maximize the time we have for our panel discussion between Anders and Wouter. So let me go ahead and I'm going to close that polling question and just give us a quick share of the results to kind of level set on the journey that Anders is going to start to take us on. So we have 47% no, you're not considering it, 30% no, but you're looking into developing it. I'm glad to see that. So hopefully after this webinar, we are going to inspire all of you to take a deep look at it, consider it, and start to go down that journey. And as you'll see through the webinar, the value of business partnering is really the foundation for FP&A and finance to impact performance across the enterprise and maximize the value of the finance function. So with that, it is my pleasure to hand the floor over to Anders. Anders, the floor is yours. Take it away, my friend.
Thanks a lot, Ernie, and thank you so much to CXO Cockpit as well for making this this webinar happen. I'm truly excited to be here today to talk about my probably favorite topic, which is business partnering. First, as Ernie has already mentioned, I'm the co-founder of the Business Partnering Institute, which I have started together with two colleagues of mine, and we all share the passion for business partnering. And at the Business Partnering Institute, we strive to help companies and finance functions, FP&A functions, crack the code on business partnering and unlock the value potential that we see in finance functions across the world. A few things about the Business Partnering Institute as well is that we have 3 pillars. One is training advisory, where we help companies develop business partnering. Another is a roundtable concept where we gather companies to discuss business partnering. And the last bit is the online part, where, as Ernie has already mentioned, we have the largest group on LinkedIn dedicated to business partnering with more than 5,000 people. Now, if we talk business partnering, what is it really? Well, business partnering is the mindset we have, or at least should have, when we optimize business performance. I think that's pretty straightforward. But what is that? Well, that is influencing decisions, right? So in FP&A, in finance, we don't make all the decisions, so we have to influence others to make better decisions. Now, how do we do that? Well, we first of all drive business performance management. And the FP&A function owns or should own performance management throughout the company. Don't leave that to anyone else. But that requires that we can create insights that help our business stakeholders make better decisions. No insights, no impact. And of course, you might have all the insights in the world, but if no one trusts you or you don't have a good relationship with your business stakeholders, then it doesn't matter. So you have to build trusted relations with your business stakeholders. Last but not least, you have to communicate with impact. You'll see from CXO Cockpit later some of the ways to do that, but also as a person, you have to have strong communicative skills in order to get your story across. If you can only talk numbers and variances in the table, probably you won't create an impact either. So that is what business partnering is. But let's take a closer look at the mindset of business partnering. In your FP&A function, in a finance function, we've typically or historically had the mindset of a cost center. Minimize the cost of finance, improve efficiency, eliminate risks, focus on data and reporting and maybe some analysis alone, understand the numbers, and not really being willing to change anything, a fixed mindset. If we want to be successful with business partnering, we have to change that. We have to change the mindset of a cost center into the mindset of a profit center. So how can we maximize value creation throughout the company? Are we doing the right things, not just doing things right? So becoming more effective. Figuring out what are the right risks to take. There's nothing wrong with risk as long as we know exactly what are the risks, how can we minimize it, or how can we leverage it to get the most value out of it. And then we have to deliver insights and recommendations for our business stakeholders. We're not just there to sit in a corner and provide some numbers, we have to take part of the discussions. And in order to do that, we have to understand the business, not just the numbers. And then we have to have a growth mindset. We have to be willing to learn all the time, understand the business, help drive the business forward. That's going from a cost center to a profit center and drive value creation throughout the company. And in order to help you do that, we at the Business Partnering Institute, and it's also part of the book that we have written, which is soon out in English, we've developed 10 value drivers, which looks at all the parameters in a company that can drive value. Not just your typical revenue and cost, but everything from P&L to balance sheet to risk, and then across the whole value chain. So from supplier through to customers and shareholders. In each of these boxes in the matrix, you will be able to find untapped value opportunity in all companies. And it's so easy to just get started because you know your numbers, and your numbers will tell you a lot. But once you start discussing those numbers with your business stakeholders, you will quickly find a lot of value opportunities. Let's try and look how that would shape up. So it is essentially what we call the hunt for gold. We believe that finance and FP&A are uniquely positioned to identify these value creation opportunities. That's because we span across the entire value chain. No other function does that. We look at, or at least should be looking at, both financial but also non-financial data. Business drivers typically come in all sorts of shape and forms which are not financial. So if we want to drive performance, we have to look at non-financial data as well. And then we're probably the ones in the company with the most analytical skills and brain power. So we have to use that and couple that with commercial business acumen to say, if we can understand the numbers, if we can understand the business, then we have a huge opportunity. And all we then need is access to key decision makers to help influence their decisions. Now, we have plenty of examples of business partners that have created value by knowing the business and knowing the numbers. And let me just give you one of these examples from a pharmaceutical company where a controller found out that one of the parts in a nasal spray, the pump, was of too high quality. It could take pump many more times than was required to empty the bottle. So simply by changing the pump to a more low quality, but still not very much adequate pump, this pharmaceutical company saved a lot of $1 million. And it's insights like those that finance could just as well bring to the table instead of other departments, because we know our numbers and we know the business. That is a huge strength. And that's why we can each and every day go on a hunt for gold. Of course, we know business partnering is not easy. So why is it we fail? And maybe here to also interject that it's not like business partnering is some sort of function within FP&A. It's not a role as such. We already talked about it. It's a mindset, right? So it's something we can add to ourselves to become better at driving value creation. But too often we lack the time, right? We're too busy creating reports and making sure the numbers are available to someone else rather than actually understanding the business and going out talking to business stakeholders. We focus on cost of finance rather than value. And as you saw on the drivers, value can be found in many, many different places, not just in cost. We also forget that it's about people. Process and technology is definitely important, but at the end of the day, it's peer-to-peer relationships that helps drive this. It's typically not something finance and FP&A professionals have been strong at, to create relationships to other people outside of finance. Then we lack the focus. A recent survey showed that 60% of finance functions were interested in business partnering and thought it was important, but only 3% had it as a critical priority. If we don't prioritize it, if we don't focus, of course we won't get anywhere. And then we don't make it concrete. I mean, I remember from my time in Maersk 10 years ago when we had our first finance business partners, we just hired some smart people and told them, go out in the business, create some value. What happened? They came back with all sorts of reporting that the business had done in the past, and then they started doing that. So they just became a report-producing factory, not driving any value. So there's plenty of reasons why we fail, but there's also a big opportunity to succeed. And in order to succeed, we have to understand it's all about people, creating the culture for successful business partnering, instilling a mindset in people, and then training them so they get the right capabilities. And then you need to fuel this by technology. Technology is critical in enabling successful business partnering because it frees up time and resources, first of all, but it also helps you to tell your story in a much more effective way. It's all about, first, focusing on the customer. Your external customers, of course, but also your internal customers or your business stakeholders. Keep them at the heart of everything that you do. If you do that, they will help you understand their business because they know that you care about them. And through that, you can develop a partnership with them and be involved in all their key decisions. So that is what we see as successful business partnering. Now, last but not least, how do we get there? The path to successful business partnering is all about getting the right people, getting the right operating model. If you're not clear about what business partnering is, you will not succeed. So you have to be very specific about this. Once you're very specific about this and you have the people that you think can do this, you gotta develop them, right? So we suggest launching a formal development program and make it a priority. Make it concrete, practice, fail, learn, so involve real cases into your learning. Don't just send your people to a 2 to 3 day training program and expect everything to change. No, it's a long learning journey where people fail fast and succeed sooner. And then, of course, leaders play an important role in this, critical role. They have to master coaching of the business partners to drive them forward. Once you have this, you can ignite the team, make them truly excited about business partnering. They will be role models for others in finance to follow, be it the AP accountant all the way through to the CFO. Everyone can have a business partner mindset. And then you create a growth culture where everyone wants the company to succeed on its goals and want all the people in the finance function also to succeed with their goals. That is what we see the path to successful business partnering.
Thank you very much, Anders, for that fantastic content. Now we're going to bring Wouter back into the conversation. We're going to have a little panel discussion. We're going to dig a little bit deeper on people, process, and technology. Again, I am thrilled to have two world-renowned thought leaders, and I encourage you to ask questions at any time in the questions area of your GoToWebinar control panel. So let's start with people. The right culture seems to be a prerequisite for effective business partner. Anders, can you give us a little color on how a company can go about delivering the right culture for this to be successful?
Well, so first of all, we have to appreciate that instilling a new culture or changing a culture in any company takes a long time. So you have to be ready for this. It doesn't just happen overnight. But it starts by making it concrete. If you make it concrete, people understand what kind of mind shift change that they have to make. And once they start to shift their mindset, it's all about trial and error, practice, fail fast to succeed sooner. And then over time, you will have seen the culture change. One example of that, one of my partners in the Institute, he had helped another company get business partnering into their way of working. And then he came back a few years later and saw that the people that they onboarded, they just got it right away. They didn't need even a big formal training program after that. They were just ready to go because it was part of the culture in the company. But it does take time. Let's be realistic about that.
Oh, thank you very much. Wouter, I'd like to bring you in here with a topic that I don't think gets nearly enough attention. Can you share with us what are the cultural aspects that are required for the effective use of technology?
Sure. I think first of all, it's important to have the culture, in the company the way Anders just described it. Technology can be of great support, and I think the main support where technology, the main role technology has within business partnering is on analysis, analytics, and effective storytelling, where you bring the story behind the actual numbers to life. In order to make that succeed in an organization, We see many times that companies are not necessarily willing to change the way they work. So you bring in a new tool and everyone still works the way they did. So they might still put post-its on everyone's desk and communicate in a non-effective way. We've seen most successful as a cultural aspect when one of the senior executives, global director FP&A or the CFO, drives a cultural change to put in technology. If the senior executives still, do their analysis of PowerPoint and they expect their people to use a tool, it's not working. So it's helpful when there's a push from top down to adopt to technology and to do effective storytelling and proper analysis.
Absolutely, yeah, fantastic. So I think just to add a little color, even a little more color, is there needs to be a culture of innovation and change and embracing that, and that's part of the culture that makes technology most effective. So people need to develop the right skills for effective business partnering. Anders, can you share with us 3 key skills that you believe people need as the basis for effective business partnering?
Yeah, so of course, there are many different capabilities that are nice to have if you want to be a business partner. But the first key capability is partnering. Of course, partnering is maybe not seen as a skill in itself, but it's about communicating with impact, it's about influencing decisions, and it's about building relationships. So partnering is the first key skill. The second key skill is analysis, but not analysis in the way that we typically know it in finance, but analysis to solve problems, be creative, and then get to a decision. And the last part is leadership, right? So even you're not in a leadership role, you still need to be able to take charge of a discussion, take charge of solving an issue in order for your business stakeholders to really see you driving an impact. It's about leading yourself, being ready to perform where you need to perform. It's about leading change, and then it's about leading, teams, although you might not have the formal leadership role, but definitely also the leaders in themselves play a huge role in this, right? They have to be role models. If they're not role models, going back to what Wouter also just said about it starts from the top. If the CFO keep being the classic bean counter, you won't see the change.
Fantastic. Wouter, can you give us some more color on what you believe, what technology skills are required?
Sure. I think the main thing I think technology can support, when I listen to Anders' presentation, is communicate with impact. That is really a thing that technology can help you with. I think the main skill required to do this is to see when to use technology effectively and when not also. Sometimes just having a conversation or a meeting can be much more effective, but in other cases, choosing technology to make your analysis and share these analysis can be much more effective. So I think the main skill you would require from your people is to use technology wisely and use the right tools for the right purpose.
Absolutely, and I know you're going to show us later how folks are effectively communicating the story behind the numbers with technology, which is key as well. So now let's shift a little bit to process. So a main part of defining success is getting people the information they need. So we're trying to impact performance across the enterprise. Anders, how do you FP&A partners understand what information the departmental leaders need to maximize their value?
I mean, in very, very simple terms, Ernie, it's about getting up from your desk, getting out from behind your screen, and go talk to them. How can you expect to understand what they need without talking to them, right? So go have a real conversation with them about how can you support them to drive better decisions. What are their challenges? What is it they need to reach their goals? That is the key.
Okay, absolutely fantastic, and I mirror that advice 100%. So it's about those conversations. What I often say, and I think I've heard Anders speak to as well, is we need to teach others to speak the language of finance, but we need to make the investment into speaking the language of sales, marketing, and operations. So we're operating on that same level set. Wouter, now I'll pivot to you a little bit. How does FP&A understand / deliver the supporting analysis that are needed by the company leaders?
I think to deliver the right analysis, you have to look beyond just the numbers. And what Anders just said, talk to people. I think that's true for technology and the role of FP&A when drive technology as well. If you just focus on a traditional, if you just have a traditional reporting process where you every month put 20 columns of data over 50 lines of numbers, and that's your focus in reporting, you're not really delivering any insight to the business. I think the role of FP&A is to combine finance with non-finance data, to bring these data sources together, to tell a real story. Don't just report, say, hey, this is my P&L statement, but try to get to a point where you add valuable insights, maybe with a narrative or maybe with a story flow, where you can really get to a point and solve a specific problem.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Anders, I gathered from your comments and knowing you that you are a proponent of business partnering being a formal process. Can you give us some color around how a company would define the ROI of investing in such a program?
Yeah, so let me give you an example, from where I also work, i.e. at Maersk. I mean, we created a formal training program. We created a framework for how we want to do business partnering. So all the things that we also advise people and companies to do in the Business Partnering Institute. And there's of course multiple ways to look at ROI of these kind of programs and a big investment into getting business partnering as being part of your culture. But alone from this training program, we asked our business partners to go out, pick a real-life case that was important to the business stakeholders, work on that case for 100 days, measure the impact, and then come back and tell us about it. And we probably invested, I'd say, $4 million in creating and executing that program. Our business partners came back with value opportunities. Not saying we realized all of it, but value opportunities of $300 million. I think even non-finance people can understand that kind of return on investment. But to me, that's a clear-cut case. Sure, you got to do investment up front, but that's a clear-cut case. To me, there are two things. Besides you can go on the hunt for gold. You can create a value log of all the things that you find, like we did at Maersk with the $300 million. But it's really about, are your business stakeholders meeting their objectives? And do they think, and I know that's a qualitative assessment, but do they think that you as the business partner, as the FP&A function, help them get there?
Okay.
If the answer to both of those questions is yes, then you're creating value. Then there's a big return on investment.
All right, thank you. Fantastic. Sorry for that dramatic pause, Anders. I was trying to drag more out of you. Now let's shift a little bit to technology. Let's talk about the role that technology plays in developing an effective business partnering program. Anders, I'll first ask you, where does technology fit when developing the business partnering initiative? Is it before, after you focus on people and defining the process?
Right. So technology is great. Technology is a huge enabler of business partnering, but it's not business partnering itself, right? So you can't start with the technology and then do business partnering afterwards. You have to create the framework for how you want to do business partnering, hire the people, preferably develop them, and then leverage technology to put them in the best possible position to succeed. Just like Wouter explained, it's about going from doing analysis to creating insights. And technology can definitely help you do that. I mean, very, very simple example again. Before we did our training in Maersk, our business partners spent 3 days a week on doing analysis and reporting. And on the fourth day, they would send it out like there was insights into it, but it's just an email, right, with an Excel or a PowerPoint presentation. They wouldn't necessarily talk to the business stakeholders. And then on the 5th day, they would ask, okay, so did something happen? Did you make some better decisions? They never talk to them. Of course, that doesn't create an impact. With technology in hand, you can vastly cut down the time you spend on doing the analysis. In fact, you can come in Monday morning and the report is already there because it's part of your technology investment. And then you go straight into the meeting and you leverage technology in the meeting to show them the story about performance and talk about the insights that you've developed, saying, this is why we perform the way we do. And then you discuss the most important question, what can we do about it? Right? That can all happen on a Monday, whereas before you spend 5 days on nothing. That's a big game changer, and technology plays a critical role there. But it doesn't come before you've created the framework, hired the right people, and invested in development.
Great, thank you. Wouter, we see companies investing money in BI systems to do analysis, but I feel many still fail to see an impact from that investment. So can you give us some insights, and I know you'll talk about this a little bit more in your demo coming up. How does a company turn analysis into insights?
Yeah, so I think what you see a lot of companies do big BI initiatives, and to just quickly jump into that, there's reasons why these projects don't generate the success that everyone thinks up front. And I think one of the issues with BI projects is that they're typically driven from the IT department. And within the IT department, there can be a lack of insight in the business and insight within finance. We believe, at CXO that these kind of initiatives should be driven from the FP&A department. That's where the knowledge is around finance. That's where the knowledge is around business, and that's where the people are that can make the proper dashboards, the proper reporting. I think another issue I see with the standard BI implementations, that there is typically a lack of adoption and integration with finance. Within the BI world, the finance is seen as a must-have reporting process. It's not real time. It's a month old, and it looks back instead of looking forward. And I think they're wrong about that. Finance can definitely look forward, and it should look forward. But I think the key of your finance data is that has been that is the most trustful source of truth for a company to run on. Where if you look at operational metrics, there are no auditors looking at that data. There's a lot of garbage in, garbage out in BI projects where if you start with finance as your starting point for an analysis project, and from there you add additional operational data sources to enrich your story of performance, you run into a more successful analytics initiative, BI initiative.
Oh, fantastic! So I want to thank Anders and Wouter for that fantastic panel discussion. So given that we are I really want to look at exactly how technology can turn analysis into insights, as this is absolutely fascinating to me. So I think I always say that in FP&A, sometimes we fail in the last mile to really impact those decisions. So at this point, I'm going to hand the floor over to Wouter, and he is going to go ahead and share with us his demo for us today.
Okay, so let me share my screen.
All right, there we go.
Very good. So I'm going to share today a typical story of how, within business partnering, how business partnering could be enabled by technology. The story I do today has two people that will play in this role play. One is John Smith. John Smith is an FP&A business partnering leader who's looking to improve. He's focused on his profit center, basically the way Anders just described it. So he's seeing how he can generate better results, create more value for the organization. There also will be, and I'll switch browsers and I'll make clear when I do that, there will be Jose Garcia, who is our who's a stakeholder in the business, and he works for the Singapore office, and Jose will collaborate together with John to get to a certain analysis. The company I use today is a retail company. It's called Comma Communications, and they sell everything from smartphones to subwoofers to home cinema sets to microwaves, etc. So it's a big electrodomestic retail organization, globally spread. And we start with looking at the group profit and loss. So I'm looking here at my profit and loss for July. I'm looking at the group entity, so I'm looking at a total of the year-to-date overview. And John here has the objective to see if he can do something on net sales. How can he improve net sales? Because they're almost 10% behind budget. And as a good business partner, he's going to look if there's anything he could optimize, in his regions. And the very first thing that John likes to do is go from this report, which will be part of his final story, by the way. I will build up an effective story that will lead to an analysis, but we'll get there in the end. The very first thing that John is going to do is create a ranking overview. He likes to know which products have been selling in the best way, or let's have a look, for example, which are my best selling products. Very, very interesting information. But probably if he wants to do something about the net sales, it would help for him to actually have a look at the returns. So the returns in retail is something, by better operations and better communication, you could probably optimize the amount of returns coming back. And he sees now, which products have the highest returns, but he's even more interested in the relative number. So he goes into the return ratio, and there he sees an interesting fact. When he clicks on Subtron 3, which is one of the flagship products of this company, it's a subwoofer. He sees a 12-month trend, and he sees a clear break in the trend. So in 1 month in July, the current month now, we've had a much higher return ratio than in the previous months. Also, this is not in line with the numbers last year. So it's a clear break in the trend. So the very next thing he's going to do, he's going to create a benchmark to understand, is this a common thing, or is this really a breaking trend? I think with benchmarking, it's key to benchmark similar performing. And in this case, I'm benchmarking products. I could have benchmarked business units, but so take similar performing products and benchmark them to each other. So I'm gonna take the Subtron 3 to benchmark, and I want to compare that to this list of flagship products, because Subtron 3 is a flagship product, but there are 4 other flagship products I'd like to compare this to. And here again, you see that this is not a trend that any of the other products have. The gray area behind, it's kind of busy, this chart, but the gray area behind is the group average. And you see that Subtron 3 here in this month has a clear issue. So John is going to make a further analysis to understand what's going on here. And he does that by going to a sales details report. And this is a report where he can see basically all the details, all the sales KPIs, but also drill into further details in his company. So he's going to hit return ratio here. He sees that at an aggregated level, this is completely within range. And that's always the challenge with dashboards. If you show aggregated data, which is what most people do, you don't see what's really behind it. So you can only see what you can see. While there, in the previous dashboards, we saw there was definitely an issue. So I'm going to drill into return ratio, and I've defined a drill into my different products here. So I'm going to go into my sound bars, and I'm going to click on Subtron 3 because I know there is an issue. And now by looking at the trend here, again, I see that there is a big periodic difference on a year-to-date scale, it's not doesn't make that big impact. But if we look at just the period July, we see this high increase in returns for this month. If we look at the individual regions where this product has been sold, you see that it comes mainly from Asia, 20% returns. But if I drill even deeper, I see that it's mainly generated by Singapore. So Japan is still within the norm. It's below 10%. Singapore has had a tremendous high amount of returns. And I can also see that the product was not sold there last year, so I have nothing I can benchmark it to compared to previous year. Well, in order to use technology effectively for business partnering, it's all about communication and collaboration between users. So what the tool SigSoCockpit offers is an ability to drive a conversation on a topic like this. So I can start, for example, here a conversation, and I can give it a title, something like high returns on Subtron 3 Singapore. And in this conversation, I can add several people that can contribute to this conversation. Well, the main person who's responsible for Singapore is Jose Garcia, so I'll add him. But I can also add, for example, the product manager for Subtron 3, which is Oliver Evans. So I could ask both for their opinion. When starting a conversation like this, I can just say any ID, why this. I first like to know, before I come with any improvement or recommendation, I first like to know, from the people that are on the floor there, what happened. So I just ask any ID why this happened. And I'm going to switch browsers now to a second browser I have available here, and I'm going to log in as Jose Garcia. So when Jose logs into the system, and of course, if he would not log in, the system would generate a notification to him, and he would get an email or another notification. But when Jose logs in, the very first thing he sees that someone wants to communicate with him using this platform. And he sees the picture of John. I think another cultural aspect is using not just names or login IDs, but using real people and pictures is important in technology. So you know who you're talking to, and actually Jose knows exactly what happened, because in this month he has dealt with a complete new sales force that sold this product, and also the Subtron is a brand new product for them. So he writes his comment. I had it on my clipboard for to use time most efficient. But the Subtron 3 is a new product for the Singapore market, and we work with a new staff. So when I switch back my browser to John, you actually see that this is an immediate conversation. So these people are talking about a real issue in the business, real time, and live. So he says, okay, thanks. Let me create a recommendation report, because John has done this several times. He has dealt with different regions. He knows his business. He knows what he's doing, and he knows how to recommend to people to reduce the amount of returns that they have. So as a last step, and I already prepared this story up front, again for making maximum use of our time here. John has created a story to tell, basically, and a story in SigSoCockpit is what we call a storyboard. It's a digital story, and he would normally have created after making the analysis, but again I've prepared this, and a digital story is actually a number of analyses together combined with a meaningful narrative, and in this case ending with a recommendation report. These stories in this tool can be used in several ways. So you combine these stories digitally by just clicking them together, but at the same time, you can also play these stories on your screen. So you can run through the story, you can share the story. So in this case, I'd like to share this story, for example, with at least with Jose and maybe also with the group CFO, because she asked me how we can improve our sales for next month. So I'll also include Olivia, who is the group CFO. So by sharing this story, the people would actually get actively a notification that they got this new story. I can also export this story to a PowerPoint or to a PDF file if I'd like to take it outside the technology here, or I can send the story directly to someone's iPad and they can swipe through the story and interact with it completely in a digital way. How does this look like, this story, if we just play this, if we actually read the story here on the screen, you can actually see that the same reports will just appear, but the report titles are changed. I have the ability to combine it with a narrative. So this is just my standard profit and loss commentary that I had in there. But my story is how can we improve net sales? So in my next page, I'll actually tell that Substron 3 ranks highest for product returns, and I make that clear that they're by far the highest on returns for this month. I'll share my benchmark study. So it shows the clear issue that we have in July with the Substron 3. Then as a next step in my story, I include a little narrative here. I just took over what Jose just told me. So it shows, it should have shown the Substron 3 here with the extreme high return ratio and including the narrative of Jose. So Substron 3 is a new product for the Singapore market, and we also work with new staff. And then last but not least, I think the role of John as a business partner is to share best practices that he has learned over time from other departments. And what he did is he actually included a recommendation report here. So he wrote a report. He says, okay, return issues in Singapore, returns went up to 30%. So his recommendations are, we should look the way how we market the features. We should educate sales personnel in a better way, get better informative displays so people know what they're buying, put more attention to after-sale report, and then encourage customer reviews, all leading to, a better, a better result next month, hopefully. So this was my demo flow of, a typical use case of how you can use technology to do better business partnering.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Wouter, for that. Again, I really appreciate that. I wish I would have had such a tool when I was back in finance to tell the story. And like I said, we often get stuck in the last mile. Those communication barriers are really what prevent us from turning analysis into insights and insights into action that impact the bottom line. So I'm going to go ahead and launch our second polling question before I have a few closing thoughts and use the time we have left for our Q&A. So just wanting to benchmark the audience and just get a sense of how much time you currently allocate to the analysis. Again, I appreciate everyone's consideration in answering all of our polling questions here today. Those of you still on for CTP or FP&A credits, we need to answer those polling questions as well. We are getting some questions, which is fantastic. A few of those questions I will pass directly along to our speakers as they are technical, and some of them are about the functionality of the software that we just saw. So just to note, we will take care of passing those along. So I'm going to go ahead and leave the polling question up for another few seconds, and then we'll close it, and then we'll just take a quick peek at the results. Go ahead and share the results. So, the analytical piece, we have 39% 4 hours or less, and then 26% 4 to 8 hours, over 8 hours. So one of the things that I would love to see is I would love to see everybody spending more time on the analysis piece in any part of their jobs in less time, putting the reports together. And I know that the technology certainly facilitates that. Wouter, do you have any thoughts here?
Well, I think it's interesting to see that there is a group that uses spending between an hour and 8 hours, and that's an interesting trend. I think there should be more time available, and by using technology in the right way, you can actually automate a lot of tasks and really spend more time on analysis, and that's one of the things we really try to help our customers with, do real value add analysis instead of manual repetitive tasks, building up Excel sheets, etc.
All right, thank you very much. So let's just tie everything together before we move to the Q&A. I always give people advice of a slide that I would print out as I have my practitioner hat on, as I do right now. So business partnering is a mindset for optimizing business performance. So often that requires a cultural change, and it's good when that starts from the top. It's about collaborating to find untapped value opportunities throughout the company and collaborating with your peers across the enterprise to do so. So you get that visibility with technology, you get visibility through those face-to-face conversations. So it definitely needs to be a combination of the face-to-face conversations, but also effective electronic communication, which is what Wouter just showed us, which is fascinating to me. So I think one skill that we can all do better at is effective electronic communication. And I think the tool we just saw helps us do that. And hopefully we can take that skill across email and pay attention to our effectiveness in our electronic communication. And then business partnering is about being customer focused, understanding the business, and then have that partnership mindset. So you look to create these win-win situations. So with your business partners, we're going to do this, sales, marketing, ops, we're going to do this. And just as Anders showed us in his example, they actually went out to everyone and said, okay, let's give us a project, give us 100 days to help you drive this project. So what is the possible value creation that we have? And when you give someone that accountability and ownership, and you've built those relationships the right way, it's amazing to see what can come out of this framework. And then it is an investment, but once you have this framework in place, it's like Christmas, the gift that keeps on giving, right? So it's just a great foundation going forward and forward. I mentioned we need effective verbal and written communication that is facilitated by the right technology. And then as Anders pointed out, it often makes sense to have that formal framework. You have to have the operating model. You have to have that launch. Then you have to really ignite, inspire the team who will execute the program, a mindset of influencing decision to optimize performance across the enterprise. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and open the floor for Q&A. So let me go ahead and put the first question your way, Wouter. So as we look at tools that help us kind of cross that last mile and help that communication side of it, I know you have a lot of very large companies and customers. What's the value proposition to them in investing in this improved communication that we see?
Well, I think the main value of investing in improved communication is like what I just said, that the automation of repetitive tasks. What we see in let's say more the traditional FP&A analysis and communication, there's a lot of activity happening around people that are every month building up a story in a tool like Excel and then combine it later on in PowerPoint. And they're highly skilled and expensive employees working on these stories every month. One of the main reasons why our company invested in technology like this is that they want to have this optimized. They want to be able to deliver the story quicker, have it live, not no manual steps in between it all, and also have the story behind the numbers, so the narrative together with the numbers, and that's almost always two separate areas. So you first focus on the numbers, and then whenever that whole presentation is done, some people are going to quickly write their narrative with it. Having this all in one platform is really one of the key reasons why our customers invest in technology like this.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Next question. I'm going to go ahead and field this one myself. Asking person in finance, what can we do better to communicate with our non-finance colleagues? And I think one of the things that we can do is just go over and start having conversations with our colleagues, try and understand their mindset, their challenges. I've obviously taken someone out to lunch, maybe having lunch in, so the finance people are going to sponsor a lunch for the marketing leaders or marketing department. Part of it is to explain what we do in finance, and then we might also say, hey, marketing, why don't you tell us what you're doing? So as I mentioned before, what we need to do is learn the language of our colleagues, but then inspire them to learn the language of finance as well. So sometimes that's not easy. Sometimes it's a habit. I had one CFO told me that he started just doing a walk around every day. And then as soon as people got used to that and not being scared of what the CFO is going to ask them, these conversations just became organic. So I think once you start to build that relationship, these non-finance colleagues of ours, it becomes organic, and you know you've done a good job when they start seeking out your input. And Anders used this as well, as do I. You become this trusted advisor. You have to make that investment face to face so they understand that you care about what they're doing, why they're doing it, and their impact, and that you care about what you're doing, how that impacts them, and how that can make them more successful. So I'm going to go ahead and launch our final polling question as I direct our final question to Wouter. Can you share with us some of the new developments in terms of functionality in the tool that you had showed us, or maybe something that is coming down the road in the next year or so in terms of the increases in functionality that folks might see?
Yeah, sure. The two key things in how we're driving our platform further, and this is going to happen in the near future, are is basically in robotization and automation. We believe that a lot of analysis tasks could be automated, automatic anomaly detection, for example, alerts on certain financial KPIs. So that's one part. Combine that maybe with some predictive analytics, so you can actually have a forward-looking view and see trend breaks. That's one main direction how we move forward. The other one is more on content sharing. So we believe that within FP&A there's a lot of similarities over companies. Although every company thinks they're unique, there's a lot of people that like to learn from each other how you, for example, do your proper cash flow analysis, or how do you look at a certain margin trend break, or a lot of things are even cross-industry quite similar. That's what we see at our customers. So we're launching a new portal where our customers can share the way how they format their dashboards. Yeah, that's a new platform that I'm really excited about that. But you can actually download best practices from other companies without sharing the data, obviously, just the formats.
Wow, fantastic. With that, I'm going to go ahead and formally close the Q&A session. And Wouter, I would like to thank you for your great insights and content, and I would like to thank Anders as well. It's fantastic content and conversation. And of course, I want to thank our webinar partner, CXO Cockpit. We appreciate their commitment to thought leadership. Everyone, please know you'll have the opportunity to be connected to either or both of our featured speakers with just a few mouse clicks when you take the post-webinar survey, which will launch immediately after my final thought for the day, which is for you, the audience. Thank you so much for your valuable time today. Please let us know what we can do better, and make the rest of your day great, everyone.